My name is Emma Sullivan. I am 27 years old. I never expected the last real conversation with my husband to happen over coffee in a quiet corner of Greenwich, Connecticut, while the rest of the enclave went about its perfect Saturday morning. The cafe sat on a tree-lined street where the houses cost more than most people make in a lifetime. I had driven there hoping stupidly that Michael still wanted to fight for us. Instead, I found out he had already started taking things that were never his to take. If you have ever shown up to a meeting with someone you loved, heart open and hands shaking only to realize they came prepared to negotiate your exit, then you already know how that morning felt. Stay with me. Michael was already at the table when I walked in. He did not stand. He did not smile. He just looked up from his phone like I was 5 minutes late to a business appointment. Emma, he said. My name sounded like an item on a checklist. I sat across from him. The white tablecloth felt too clean. You said this was the last chance to talk. So talk. He pushed a slim folder toward me. I need signatures on these transfers. The markets moved faster than I expected. If we move the money now, we protect what we have built together. I opened the folder. The amounts were large. Some of the destination accounts I did not recognize. One line had Ava Chen listed as the contact for the receiving firm. Ava was my coworker at the luxury real estate company where I handled marketing. She had started helping Michael with side investments a few months earlier. I had told myself it was harmless networking. Why is Ava's name on our accounts? I asked. My voice stayed low, but I did not soften the question. Michael took a slow sip of his coffee. He was always patient, strategic. He waited until I was the one who felt like I had overreacted. She's been consulting on the portfolio. It's efficient. You've been busy with work. I thought you would appreciate the help. I stared at the numbers again. Some of the transfers pulled from the investment accounts my brother Daniel had quietly built over the years. Daniel never bragged. He had grown a small, very successful investment firm without telling most people how well it was doing. He had offered to let Michael and me participate in a few opportunities because we were family. I had trusted Michael with the paperwork because numbers were his strength, or so I had believed. I looked up. These moves were never discussed with me. And Ava is not family. She is my co-worker. Michael leaned back in his chair. The calm on his face did not reach his eyes. You're being emotional. Daniel has his secrets. That does not mean you get to police every dollar that leaves an account I also manage. The word emotional landed like a slap I had heard too many times before. I felt the old familiar pull to apologize to make myself smaller so the conversation could stay civil, but something in me stayed still instead. I reached into my bag for the notes I had scribbled on the drive over. An old notebook of Daniel's that I had grabbed by mistake weeks earlier when I was clearing out a storage box slid out with them. One page had fallen open on the table between us. In my brother's neat handwriting, I read, Michael keeps asking about liquidity. I told him the structure is locked for a reason. Ava called twice this week. Something is off. Michael saw the page. His expression shifted for half a second. Calculation, not shock. Where did that come from? He asked. It was in my bag, I said. Daniel wrote it months ago. He was already watching you. Michael reached across the table. I pulled the page back before his fingers touched it. Don't, I said. Blunt, no hesitation. Tell me what you and Ava have been moving. Now. He exhaled like I was the one making things difficult. Emma, this is why we needed this meeting. You have let your family get inside your head. Daniel built whatever he built on his own. That does not give you the right to accuse me of stealing from accounts that have both our names on them. Both our names, I repeated. But you never asked me before you moved anything. And now Ava's name is all over the paperwork. He stood up. dropped a few bills on the table, and buttoned his jacket. Sign the papers or don't. But if you keep digging into things that are already handled, you are going to damage what is left of this marriage. Some conversations are better had with a lawyer present. He walked out without looking back. I stayed at the table long after the coffee went cold. That diary page sat in front of me. My hands had stopped shaking. The pain was still there, sharp and heavy, but something else had started to settle in its place. I was not going to sit in this cafe and let him rewrite the story of what he had done. I drove back to the house we shared in the enclave. The streets were quiet, the lawns perfect, the kind of neighborhood where everyone noticed whose car was parked where. Inside, I went straight to the guest room closet and pulled out the rest of the old box I had been meaning to sort for months. Daniel's notebook was only the beginning. There were more pages dated over the last year and a half, each one noting another question from Michael, another suggestion from Ava, another transfer that never quite matched what I had been told. My brother had been patient. He had watched. He had written it all down without ever accusing anyone out loud. That was how Daniel operated. Quiet, careful, successful in ways most people in Greenwich never knew about. I sat on the floor and read until the light outside changed. Every entry made the same thing clearer. Michael had been moving money that was never fully his to move. Ava had been the one facilitating the paperwork on her end. They had counted on me being too busy, too trusting, too focused on keeping the marriage alive to notice. That night I called my brother. Daniel answered on the second ring. I found your old notes, I said. My voice was steady, even though my chest felt tight. The ones about Michael and Ava and the transfers. There was a long pause. Then Daniel said I was hoping you would never have to read them, but I kept them in case you ever needed proof. I closed my eyes. How much did they take? Enough that it matters, he answered, but not enough that I couldn't stop it. Once I knew you were ready to see it. I did not cry until after I hung up. Not loud, just quiet tears that came from the place where trust used to live. I had spent 3 years defending Michael to my friends in this neighborhood. I had told them he was under pressure at work, that he was just focused on our future. And the whole time he had been using the quiet success my brother had built to line his own pockets with help from my own coworker. The next morning I woke up and made a different decision. I was not going to beg for explanations anymore. I was not going to sign anything. I was going to find every record, every message, every trail they left. And I was going to do it with the help of the one person in my life who had already been watching out for me without telling me. I called Olivia Parker. She was not someone I saw every day, but she had been the steady voice on the other end of late night texts when I started noticing Michael pulling away. She worked in finance compliance for a firm across town. She listened without interrupting while I told her what I had found. When I finished, she said send me copies of everything. The diary pages, the transfer records. I will look at them quietly. No one else needs to know yet. I thanked her and hung up. For the first time in months, I felt something close to relief. Not because the pain was gone. It was not. But because I had stopped waiting for Michael to tell me the truth. I was going to find it myself. That afternoon, 2 of our closest friends in the enclave, Sophia Ramirez and Ethan Caldwell, stopped by unannounced. They had heard Michael was upset after our coffee. They had come to check on me. Within 10 minutes, it became clear they had already chosen a side. Sophia sat on the edge of the couch like she might need to leave quickly. Emma, Michael says you are making accusations that could hurt his reputation. You know how small this community is. People talk. Ethan nodded. He's under a lot of pressure. Maybe you two should talk to someone neutral before this gets worse. I looked at both of them. These were people I had hosted dinners for, people who had stood in our kitchen laughing about weekend plans. Now they were repeating Michael's version like it was fact. I'm not making accusations, I said. I'm asking questions about money that left accounts with my name on them. Ava Chen is involved. That is not gossip. That is a fact. Sophia's expression tightened. Ava is a professional. Michael trusts her. Maybe you should too. I did not raise my voice. I did not cry. I simply stood up and opened the front door. If you came here to tell me to be quiet and trust the man who has been moving money behind my back, then you can leave, I said. I am done being told I am the problem for noticing what is actually happening. They left without another word. I watched their car pull out of the driveway and felt something final settle in my chest. The friendships I had spent years protecting in this neighborhood were already gone. They had chosen the version of the story that kept things comfortable. I had chosen the truth. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with the diary pages spread in front of me and a new folder Olivia had started compiling. The pain was still there, raw and heavy, but underneath it was something sharper and clearer. I was not the woman who had driven to that cafe hoping to save a marriage anymore. I was the woman who was going to make sure the people who had stolen from my brother and lied to my face could not keep doing it in the dark. I did not know yet how far they had gone, or how many more people in this enclave would turn their backs when the truth came out. I only knew I was no longer willing to pay the price of silence. The next morning, I would start making calls. Quiet ones, strategic ones, the kind my brother would have approved of. Because some betrayals do not end with a fight. They end when you finally stop giving the people who hurt you the power to keep hurting you. The next morning, I woke up before the sun touched the big windows of the house in Greenwich. I made coffee in the quiet kitchen and sat at the same table where the diary pages still lay. My hands were steady when I picked up the phone. I called Lucas Bennett, the lawyer Daniel had quietly recommended years earlier when we first moved here. Lucas answered on the third ring, his voice calm and already awake. I told him everything in short sentences. The transfers, Ava Chen's name on the documents, the diary pages my brother had kept. Lucas listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, "Send me copies of what you have. Do not sign anything else. I will look at the accounts today and call you back before noon." I thanked him and hung up. The house felt larger and emptier than it ever had. I packed a small bag with clothes and the notebook. I did not know yet if I would sleep there again, but I wanted options. Michael came home early that afternoon. I heard his car in the driveway and felt the old automatic pull to smooth things over. I stayed at the kitchen table instead. He walked in, saw the open notebook and stopped. "You called a lawyer," he said. It was not a question. "I did," I answered, blunt. "After you walked out of the cafe yesterday, I decided I was done guessing." He set his briefcase down harder than necessary. "You're making this into something it is not. Ava is helping with paperwork. The transfers protect us both. If you drag other people into this, you're only going to embarrass yourself in front of everyone we know here. Everyone we know here already thinks I am the problem," I said. Sophia and Ethan made that clear yesterday. They chose your version before they even heard mine. Michael's jaw tightened. He stepped closer to the table. "Because your version sounds crazy. You are accusing your own coworker and your husband of stealing from accounts that have both our names. Daniel's notes are just one man's opinion. He never liked me. You know that." I stood up. The vulnerability was still there, thick in my throat, but I did not let it soften my words. "Daniel never liked the way you asked for access to things that were locked for a reason. And now I see why. Ava called the firm twice last week, according to his notes. She pushed for faster moves. You both counted on me being too tired from work and too scared of losing this marriage to ask questions. He laughed once, short and cold. You are rewriting everything because you are hurt. I get it. But this is not the time to blow up our life over hurt feelings. Sign the papers I gave you yesterday. We move the money, we stabilize things, and we figure out the rest later. Or don't sign, and I will have to protect what is left on my own. I looked at him for a long moment. The man standing in our kitchen was not the one I had married, or maybe he had always been this version, and I had been too busy trying to keep the peace to notice. I'm not signing anything I said, and I am not the one who blew up our life. You did that when you started moving money with my coworker behind my back. He picked up his briefcase again. You are going to regret this, Emma. People in this neighborhood do not like drama. They like stability. If you keep pushing, you are going to find out how fast friends disappear when they think you are the unstable one. He left without another word. The door clicked shut behind him and the house went quiet again. I sat back down and opened my laptop. Olivia had already sent a secure link with the first set of records she had pulled. The numbers matched the diary pages almost exactly. Transfers that had been described to me as routine rebalancing were actually moving into accounts connected to Ava's name at a different firm. Small amounts at first, then larger ones over the last 8 months. Enough to matter. Enough to feel like a slow, deliberate drain. I was still reading when my phone buzzed with a message from an old shared cloud account Michael and I had used for photos and voice memos years earlier. I had not opened it in months. A new file had been uploaded automatically from his phone the night before. It was labeled only with a date from 2 weeks ago. I clicked it. The recording started with Michael's voice low and familiar. She won't notice if we move it in smaller pieces. Emma trusts the statements when they look clean. Ava's laugh came next light and quick. She is too busy feeling sorry for herself about how distant you are. Just keep telling her it is for your future. She eats that up. Michael answered, Once the big transfer clears next month, we are done. She can have the house and whatever is left. We will be set up somewhere else. The recording ended. I played it again, then a third time. My hands were shaking now, but not from fear, from the cold, clear confirmation that every excuse he had given me had been a lie he practiced out loud with the woman who sat 3 desks away from me at work. I saved the file to 3 different places. Then I forwarded it to Lucas and to Olivia with one line. This was on our old shared account, uploaded from his phone yesterday. Olivia replied within minutes. Do not confront him again until Lucas tells you it is safe. I'm pulling the rest of the records tonight. We have enough for a civil case already. The recording makes it criminal if we want to go there. I did not answer right away. I sat in the quiet kitchen and let the weight of it settle. My husband had not just taken money. He had planned it with my coworker while I was in the next room or at my desk trying to believe we could still fix things. He had used the trust I had given him and the quiet success my brother had built without fanfare. That evening, the texts started from the circle we used to call friends. Sophia wrote, First, Michael says you are refusing to sign basic paperwork and dragging Ava into it. This is getting ugly fast. Maybe take a breath before you burn every bridge in Greenwich. Ethan followed. We are all trying to stay neutral, but you are making it hard. Just sign what he asked and talk to a counsellor. Do not make this a war. I did not reply to either of them. I blocked their numbers instead. The silence that followed felt heavier than the messages had. Later that night, Michael called. I let it go to voicemail. His voice on the message was clipped and controlled. I know you found the recording. We need to talk before this goes any further. I am coming by in the morning. Do not do anything stupid until then. I saved the voicemail too. I called Daniel. He answered on the first ring this time. I have the recording, I said. Michael and Ava talking about moving the rest of it next month and leaving me with whatever is left. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I'm sorry it went this far, but you have what you need now. Lucas will handle the legal side. I will make sure the accounts get frozen from my end so nothing else moves. You do not have to do this alone. I know I said, but I am going to finish it. After we hung up, I sat on the edge of the guest room bed and looked at the bag I had packed that morning. The house around me was still beautiful, still the one everyone in the enclave admired, but it no longer felt like mine. The people I had called friends had already chosen the version of the story that protected their own comfort. The man I had married had already planned his exit with the money he had taken from my brother's quiet success. I was not going to wait for him to come back in the morning and try to negotiate one more time. I was not going to let him set the terms of how this ended. I picked up the phone and called Lucas again. When he answered, I said I have a recording. Michael and Ava. They planned it out loud. I want to move forward with whatever legal steps protect the accounts and hold them accountable. Tonight, if possible. Lucas did not hesitate. Send it over. I will file the emergency motion first thing in the morning to freeze everything connected to those transfers. You did the right thing by waiting until you had proof. I thanked him and hung up. Outside the window, the neighborhood lights were coming on one by one. Perfect houses, perfect lawns, people who would smile at me in the grocery store tomorrow and then text Michael to ask if I had finally calmed down. I did not care anymore what they thought. The cost of their approval had already been too high. I zipped the bag closed and carried it to the car. I would stay at a hotel tonight, somewhere quiet where no one knew my name or my husband's plans. In the morning, I would meet Lucas and begin the part of this that Michael could not control with charm or patience or another lie. The betrayal was no longer a secret I was carrying alone. It was evidence. And evidence, once recorded and documented, has a way of forcing the truth into the open, whether the people who created it want it there or not. I drove away from the house without looking back in the rearview mirror. The pain was still there, deep and steady, but so was something else. Something that felt like the first real breath I had taken in months. The hotel room was small and anonymous, exactly what I needed. I slept in short stretches, waking each time to check my phone. No messages from Michael, no calls from Sophia or Ethan, just one text from Olivia at 2 a.m. that read simply, "Evidence received. Lucas is moving fast. You're not alone in this." I woke early, showered and dressed in the same clothes I had worn the day before. I drove to Lucas Bennett's office in a quiet building a few towns over from Greenwich. He met me in a small conference room with the blinds half drawn. Lucas was in his 50s, steady and direct. He had already reviewed everything I sent. The diary pages, the transfer records, and the recording from the old shared account. He placed a printed copy of the motion in front of me. We are filing an emergency motion this morning to freeze all accounts connected to the transfers, he said. The recording makes this stronger than most civil cases I see. It shows intent and coordination. I have also referred the matter to the district attorney's office for review. What they did crosses into fraud. I nodded. My voice felt steady when I spoke. What happens to Michael and Ava? Civilly, they will be ordered to repay what was taken plus damages. Criminally, that depends on what the prosecutor decides after they review the recording and the pattern of transfers. Either way, their names will be public in the filings. In a place like Greenwich, that reputation damage is permanent. He slid another document across the table. This is a temporary restraining order request. It keeps Michael from contacting you directly or coming near any property you claim as yours until the court rules. I recommend you sign it. I signed without hesitation. Lucas looked at me for a moment. You did the hard part already. You stopped waiting for him to tell the truth. Most people never get that far. I left his office with copies of everything and a new sense of ground under my feet. The accounts were already being frozen. Ava had been served at work. Michael's phone had been blowing up with messages from his own lawyer. I did not answer any of them. I forwarded everything to Lucas and blocked the numbers. That afternoon, Michael tried one last time. He showed up at the hotel. The front desk called my room and I told them to send him away. He left a voicemail instead, his voice tight and no longer patient. Emma, this is not what we agreed to. You are destroying everything over a misunderstanding. Call me back before the lawyers make this worse than it has to be. I deleted the message without replying. The next day, I drove back to the house one last time with a mover I had hired quietly. Sophia and Ethan were waiting in the driveway when I pulled up. They had heard about the filings. Their faces were tight with the kind of discomfort people show when they realize they picked the wrong side too early. Sophia stepped forward first. Emma, you have to stop this. Michael is saying you are the one who moved money, and now you are trying to blame him and Ava. People are talking. You are going to lose everything. I looked at her, then at Ethan. These were the same people who had sat at my table and laughed about weekend plans. Now they were standing on my driveway, repeating the story Michael had fed them. I already lost everything that mattered, I said. The marriage, the trust, the friends who chose comfort over the truth. The only thing left to lose is my self-respect, and I am not giving that away too. Ethan shook his head. You're making a mistake. Just sign the papers and walk away quietly. No one has to know the details. I walked past them to the front door. I am walking away, but not quietly, and not on his terms. They stayed in the driveway while the mover loaded the last of my things. I did not invite them inside. When the truck pulled away, I locked the door behind me and left the key in the lockbox for the real estate agent Michael would eventually have to deal with. I did not look back. Daniel called that evening while I was unpacking in the small apartment I had rented outside the enclave. It was modest 2 bedrooms, nothing like the house in Greenwich, but it was mine. You do not have to do this alone, he said. I can help with a place closer to me, or money for whatever you need, while this settles. I know, I answered, but I need to do this part myself. You already gave me the evidence I needed when you kept those notes. Let me handle the rest. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I am proud of you, not because you fought back, because you finally stopped carrying the weight of someone else's choices. I thanked him and hung up. The apartment was quiet. No perfect lawns outside the window, no neighbors who would text Michael to ask if I had calmed down yet. Just space to breathe, and the slow, steady knowledge that I had chosen myself when it would have been easier to stay silent. The legal process moved faster than I expected. Within 2 weeks, the court had frozen the remaining accounts and ordered Michael and Ava to appear for a deposition. The recording was entered into evidence. Their lawyers tried to argue it was taken out of context, but the pattern in the diary pages and the transfer records made context impossible to deny. Michael settled before trial. He repaid what had been taken, plus legal fees and damages. Ava lost her position at the firm and faced her own civil judgment. Neither of them would work easily in Greenwich again. This social circle that had once protected them turned cold once the filings became public record. I did not celebrate. I did not gloat. I simply signed the final settlement papers in Lucas's office and walked out into the afternoon light. The money was back where it belonged. My brother's firm was protected. The people who had stolen from it would carry the consequences for a long time. What I lost could not be replaced with money. The marriage was over. The friendships I had built in that enclave were gone. The version of my life I had tried so hard to hold together had dissolved. I felt the weight of those losses, some nights when the apartment was too quiet, but I also felt something else growing in its place, a quiet certainty that I would never again trade my peace for the comfort of people who only stood by me when it was easy. I set the boundary clearly and without apology. No contact with Michael, no explanations to Sophia or Ethan or anyone else who had chosen his story over the evidence. I changed my number. I blocked the old shared accounts. I told Lucas to handle any remaining communication through him alone. 3 months later, I sat on the small balcony of the apartment with a cup of coffee and watched the sun come up over buildings that did not belong to anyone I knew. My phone stayed silent. No one from Greenwich reached out anymore. This silence did not feel like loneliness. It felt like room to build something that actually belonged to me. I had learned the hardest way possible that marriage is not ownership. Love is not a contract that lets one person drain the other dry while the other keeps making excuses. Boundaries are not cruelty. They are the line you draw when someone has already crossed every other line you gave them. I chose myself. I lost the life I thought I was supposed to protect. And in the quiet that followed, I found the one I could actually live with. Thank you for listening to my story. If you have ever been the one who finally stopped explaining yourself to people who had already decided you were the problem, I hope this gave you something to hold on to. How much disrespect are you willing to tolerate before you choose yourself?